Chapter 11, Arenas and Arthur Leywin. 2 weeks had passed since the Juggernaut accident, and I was contacted by Lady Astrea. She told me Arenas wanted to talk with me. She didn't tell me what he wanted, but I could assume it was something about my powers. What else would he need me for? The Astrea Familia already knew I didn't have a blessing, and it wasn't so hard for Arenas to find out just by checking my records. Following Athena, we entered the guild. Unlike the other times I visited it to talk with Sophie or exchange my magic stones, there was only one person inside aside from the two of us. Hello, Gods Astrea and young Arthur. I'm an assistant of Arenas, tasked with escorting you to the room of prayers, said the figure. I would attack the person if I didn't know who it was beforehand. Black robes covered their face, making it impossible to tell their gender or any other features. This was Fells, also known as a cheap Ains knockoff due to being a skeleton. Follow me, Fells said. Fells guided us until we arrived at the entrance of the room of prayers but stayed while we went in. When we walked in, I could feel Arenas' gaze observing me with from what looked like a stone throne. Astrea, Arthur, thank you for coming, Arenas said. There is no need to thank me, Lord Arenas, I said with a slight bow while Astrea only nodded her head. It was better not to anger someone like him. The conversation started with me recounting my side of the story while not mentioning why I was so deep in the dungeon. He listened without interrupting me. That's quite an achievement, not only going so deep down the dungeon alone but also defeating a juggernaut with minimal assistance, not to mention what you've been doing since your arrival. That's why I request your assistance in a certain matter, he said. My assistance? Why would he want something from me? My mind thought of possible scenarios. Could it be he knew about Sylvie and wanted my help with the Xenos? No, if he did want my help with the Xenos, Lady Astrea wouldn't be here. You need my assistance for what exactly? I asked. Wiping out Evelys, he answered. Well, that wasn't on my list. Walking out of the guild, I thought about what Arenas told me. It was weird to believe Astrea was okay with being part of this. From what I observed, she is someone who would be lenient to the point of being willing to forgive serious criminals under the premise that they swear not to commit any wrongdoing again. But I guess she understands how harsh circumstances can sometimes be and agrees with the idea of abandoning such principles if the situation demands it. That brings us to the plan for the attack. It was simple, the Astrea Familia and I would attack their bases while the Hermes Familia would take care of the people that escaped. And the Ganesha Familia would patrol the city and divert civilians from our location to prevent innocents from getting hurt in the crossfire. The Hermes Familia had already tracked the location of all their bases with a list of confirmed members spread around Orario. Hence, the only problem was to make it quick and not alert the others, so flashy spells were out of the picture. But why would Arenas want me to join? I was involved in the incident, but why involve me in this? From what he said, he already knows what I can do, so why? If he knows about Sylvie, it could involve the Xenos, but I can't be sure yet. We continued towards Stardust Garden, where we would go through it once again before everything started. Standing on the roof of an abandoned building with Rio. Before we even started, I made a sound barrier inside the building so no sound would escape, and with a nod from Rio, we jumped down. Dampening my fall with wind mana, I landed and drew my sword. Sadly, the sword Grandpa gave me was destroyed during my last fight. So I used the sword I bought at the Married Blades. Setting my blade ablaze with a blue fire and activating Thunderclap Impule, we went into action, killing multiple Evelys members. Even if it was the first time I killed a human, it didn't affect me, honestly, I didn't feel any different. This was Evelys, a group that shouldn't get any mercy from me, so I ignored the screams of pain and begging to be spared and continued killing. Me augmenting myself and using Thunderclap Impulse and Rio, being a level 4, they didn't stand a chance, and not so long after, they were all dead. Having finished our part, we left the building and started running towards the Rudra Familia, our final goal where we would regroup with the other members before attacking. Taking a look at Rio, who has been quiet for some time now. She took Iska's death the hardest, but still, her condition was better than it would have been if they had all died. How are you feeling? I decided to ask. I'm fine. Let's finish this, she said without even looking at me. Over the past week since the accident, we got to know each other and became what I would consider friends. So I knew that Arenas didn't decide to get rid of Evelis now, she would. When we arrived at our meeting point, Elise and Gajuno were already there and waiting for the rest. Seeing you without any injuries, I assume everything went well? She asked after noticing our arrival. Yeah, they didn't pose a challenge. I answered while Ryu said nothing while looking at the Rudra Familia with clenched fists. Seeing this, I looked at Elise, and she understood what to do. While I could talk to her, we have known each other for 2 weeks, so talking with the captain of her Familia was the better choice. After 10 minutes of waiting, everyone arrived, so we went through the plan again. It was similar to how we attacked the other Evelis hideouts but this time on a bigger scale. We would split up again, and after the signal, we start attacking them from different sides to make them an easier target. While I thought about killing Rudra during this, but this being an operation Arenas knew I was participating in would have me exiled from Orario or worse, killed. But that didn't stop me from making sure that Jura was dead. Jumping through a window, I used sound magic to remove the noise of shattering glass and started walking through their Familia home, killing every member I saw searching for him. Thankfully I didn't need to search for him because he came to me. Standing there with 5 other members, I couldn't stop a smile from appearing. My prey came to me instead. Letting out my killing intent, it wasn't that powerful alone but combined with the pressure of a yellow core, it did the job of scaring them. I killed the cannon fodder with ice spikes through their heads while looking Jura directly in the eyes. All my intent focused straight on him. Surrender, and I won't hurt you. He shouted while trying to stay composed but failing. I would be scared if your legs didn't shake that much. I said while slowly walking towards him. Seeing me not stop, he tried slashing me with his short sword, but I avoided it and grabbed his hand. You know you would at least get a quick and painless death from the Juggernaut. I said while my hand ignited in white flames that slowly began to spread, freezing his arm. Tightening my grip on his arm, it shattered. He tried to scream, but I used sound magic, so nothing came out. I watched him as he tried to flee from me, but that won't happen. Activating nerve fracture, I paralyzed him. Crouching down, I looked him head in the eyes. You should be happy that I'll kill you now instead. If I didn't kill you here, you would one day do something that would make this look like child's play. After saying that, I sent a large amount of sound magic, creating an ear-piercing sound that raptured his eardrums. I watched him as he suffered from the pain. Before letting out a sigh. I don't know why I took it to this level. I could have killed him straight away. So why did I do this to him? I'm happy Sylvie wasn't here to see me. His head fell on the floor with a single swing of my sword. The Rudra Familia was dead. Sylvie and I stayed home the following day just thinking about the last days. We successfully managed to wipe out Evelis. While I knew there surely were survivors somewhere spread across Orario, there wasn't anything we could do without knowing who they were. I feel like I'm missing something important. It has been almost 9 years since my reincarnation, so it's hard to remember what will happen in the future besides a few events. I could have written them down, but I didn't want to risk Grandpa finding out. If he did, I would be forced to tell him about my reincarnation, which I didn't want to do. But back to yesterday's event. Thanks to Arenas and the guild covering everything up, the public thinks that the Rudra Familia died in the dungeon, and Rudra went up to heaven due to the loss of his children. While we and the gods/goddesses from Bigger knew what really happened and the fact that Rudra returning to heaven was him being banished by Arenas. As for the bodies, let's leave it at the Hermes Familia were good at their job. Chapter 12, Return Home. Arthur Leywin. As I waited for Ryu to exit the guild, I started thinking about what had happened since the Juggernaut incident 2 months ago. Arenas didn't summon me again, but my core progressed to solid yellow. The Astrea Familia also helped me by selling more magic stones. When Sylvie stopped eating all the stones from the middle floors, I had more to sell, and they did it for me. While Arenas and Fells knew about my strength, the rest of the guild didn't. I began thinking about joining a familia. However, while my magic is at a level that only a few could compete in this world, the problem is my body. Even with my assimilated body as I go down the dungeon, it's hard to fight without always relying on augmenting with mana. The blessing could help me improve my body to save mana during combat and allow me to use techniques like Burst Step. Burst Step is a technique that combines Mirage Walk with a burst of speed created by artificially activating the muscles needed to take a quick step. This technique results in an almost instant, short-ranged movement that is mostly undetectable. But the problem is that human bodies cannot handle the burden this technique places on the body, resulting in permanent damage to the legs, and overuse will cause me to become crippled. However, with the help of the Falna, I should be able to use it at some point without this happening. Art, let's go. The voice of Rhea snapped me out, and as I looked up, I saw her walking out of the guild. Sylvie, seeing this, jumped out of my head, and jumped to her. I couldn't help but sigh at Sylvie's behavior. Last week when I was invited for dinner by the Astrea Familia, she decided it would be a great idea to steal Lady Astrea's food. Thankfully Lady Astrea thought her behavior was cute and gave her more food. Ryu especially warmed up to Sylvie and always gave her extra food, so she became Sylvie's favorite. It also confirmed that after you see Sylvie, the effects of her mysterious hiding power fade. Yes, coming. I answered as we started walking to the Stardust Garden. Some would wonder why we are currently together. The answer is simple: she wanted to see me fight against normal monsters. But, knowing her personality because of my past life, I knew I could trust her, so I didn't see a problem with it. Q. Maybe you shouldn't trust people because of your past knowledge, Papa. Sylvie said, and I started thinking about it. She was right that I can't completely trust what I know. A good example could be my interactions with Seer when I visit the hostess of fertility. When we arrived, we were greeted by Lady Astrea, and we gathered at the table where we would discuss any future expedition I would participate in. But before I do that, I need to learn how to fight with the other members. While I could fight well alone, fighting with others is different. That will also be useful in the future when Bella becomes an adventurer, and we will go to the dungeon together. Speaking of Bella, her birthday will be in 2 days, so I'm going to return to the village. What should I buy for her? A weapon. But what kind would fit her best? Originally Belle would use a dagger, but Bella doesn't want to use one. Me being in this world changed a few things, like the fact that Bella wanted to learn how to use a sword because she saw me using it. A short sword is small, lightweight, and easy to wield. Short swords are also good when fighting in confined spaces, being more easily wielded for thrusting and swinging. It should be a good start, and she can change her weapon later. It's decided. I'm going to buy her a short sword tomorrow. I was again standing in front of the married blades. Even if the owner is crazy, but the swords he sells are good quality. Taking a deep breath, I went inside. Hello, customer. How can I help you? The same crazy guy welcomed me. But wait, why isn't he crazy anymore? Is that the same guy? Looking closely, he seems the same, excluding the craziness. Maybe a twin brother. Ah, I'm here to buy a sword. I decided to say, ignoring my thoughts. He just nodded, so I went to look at the different short swords. After some time looking, a sword caught my eye. The grip is wrapped in black leather and silver wire with a matching sheath. Picking it up, I did some test swings. The sword was tough, sturdy, and sharper than other low-class weapons, though it was also heavier than other short swords. Taking the sword, I placed it on the counter where the owner was. I will buy this one, I said, still looking at him, wondering if he really didn't have a crazy twin. The last time I was scared, he would jump me to get another marble, but this time he looked normal. He looked at the weapon before smiling. You seem to have a good eye. It will cost you 20,000 valis. He said. Considering the quality of this weapon, it's relatively cheap. So why would he sell this at such a low price? Deciding to ignore this for now, I paid for the weapon and left. 2 days have passed, and I'm currently running with wind mana, surrounding me to increase my speed with mana rotation, refiling my core. Now with my core level, I can easily run between the village and Orario in just a few hours without stopping. After just another 20 minutes, I could see the village, so I started slowing down and walking normally. Observing the village, I could see the adults working in the fields while the kids played around with each other. Walking at a normal pace, it didn't take long before I arrived near the house, where I saw Bella training with a wooden sword. Seeing my arrival, she dropped the sword in her hand as she dashed toward me. "Big brother," she said, still energetic, while giving me a hug. I promised to visit often, but almost half a year had passed since I left for Orario, and this was my first visit. Sighing, I patted her head as we went inside the house where Grandpa was preparing food. After some time, we sat at the table, and Bella wanted to hear everything about my adventures in the dungeon, so I started telling them about everything that had happened. When it came to the Juggernaut and Evelus, I didn't directly specify what the monster was, only that it was powerful, and I completely skipped the part about Evelus. It was so Bella wouldn't find out about it, but Grandpa probably figured it out based on what I said. "Wow, Big Brother is so strong," Bella said as she listened to all the stories I told. "Not only strong, but he also started making his harem," Grandpa said as he nodded sagely. "Did he seriously take this out of the whole thing? I seriously hope this is his act." "Don't listen to him, Bella. When you become an adventurer, be smart and don't do anything I would," I said so she doesn't start trying to do stupid things in the dungeon, or worse, pick up boys in the dungeon. I wouldn't let that happen, and if some boy disappeared in the dungeon, it would be just the dungeon doing its job, nothing else. "Yes, Big Brother," she said. We continued talking about other things like the upcoming expedition I'm joining and Bella's training. This should be an excellent time to give her my present. "You have been training hard, so I decided to get you this," I said, giving her the short sword I bought. She quickly took the short sword from my hands and looked at it. "Thank you, Big Brother," she said with stars shining from her eyes as she was about to run out and start training again, but I stopped her before she could. "You can train tomorrow. The sword won't leave," I said as she stopped and started rubbing the back of her head. We spent the rest of the day with me, telling them other stories and showing more of my magic. My magic has improved a lot since I left. Now instead of just augmenting my body or sword with the element, I could use some spells I developed. The best part was that they could still affect gods in their sealed state. Seeing Zeus, the god of lightning, be affected by a lightning spell was the funniest thing I've seen. Though he seemed depressed afterward. Sidestepping Bella's attack, I tripped her, and she fell face first on the ground. "Ow wow. Can you stop doing that?" she asked, annoyed for tasting the ground for the 5th time today. "You should be ready for everything in the dungeon, not only the monster but the adventurers. They can sometimes be worse," I said. Well, considering I did the opposite by saving the Astrea Familia without thinking, I don't know if I should be saying this. But hey, if they did something, Sylvie would help me. Standing up, she was ready to start again, so we continued the training until she couldn't continue anymore. While I had my mana core and assimilated body, so I had more strength than normal people, she was still an ordinary mortal without a blessing. This also led me to think more about the changes in this world. Could she still be the reincarnation of the Argonaut, and will she still get the Liara's freeze skill? Our training continued for the rest of the week before I decided to return to Orario. It would give Sylvie access to better quality magic stones and help me progress my core faster. While I had used the ambient mana to help me purify my core in the past, using a magic stone that contracted lots of mana would speed up the process of me becoming a white core mage. Especially now that the progress started slowing down. Chapter 13, New God Descends. Arthur Leywin. 3 years have passed since I became an adventurer, and I've grown a lot during this time. My core broke through into the initial silver stage, and I could see the ether particles but didn't have any luck in influencing them yet. I also joined the Astrea Familia on multiple expeditions, and we managed to reach the 46th floor. Considering we are a small group, this is a big feat. Ryu and I also formed a team outside the expeditions. Sylvie and I also moved out of Uncle Vince's apartment and bought our own. It's nothing big but enough for us. Stop spacing out, princess. A voice snapped me out of my reminiscing. My eyes twitched when I heard the nickname. I told you not to call me that, Lyr. But you look like a pretty princess with your magic. Lyra said with a smirk while I could hear the muffled laughter from the others. Nothing will happen if I punch her, right? No, I shouldn't do that. I got the nickname due to my illusion magic. I thought it was a good idea to disguise myself and make me look more feminine so people wouldn't stick out when people saw me joining them in the dungeon, but it was the worst thing I could have done. I stopped using it after the first time, but they still call me that, and I blame ROB for this stupid idea. Yes, I will blame ROB for every stupid decision I make. Sigh. Wait, why were we even here? I suddenly remembered that I didn't know why I was there. I only knew that Lady Astrea asked Ryu to bring me here. Lady Astrea, could you tell me why we are here and why so many people are gathered? I asked the goddess. Oh, didn't I tell you? A new goddess will descend today and make a welcome speech. She explained with a smile. Wait, a goddess will descend today. It must be some minor goddess because I don't remember a big shot in the canon story that descended at this time. So I waited, and after a few minutes, I could see a white beam descend from the sky, and magical screens started appearing throughout Orario. On the screen, multiple gods could be seen surrounding the middle where the beam hit. When the light started fading, I could see a petite goddess with a youthful appearance. She had blue eyes and mid-thigh length black hair tied into twin tails that reached down to her mid-thighs. She was wearing a white mini dress with a blue ribbon around her neck and one tied under her breasts and around her arms, and a pair of white gloves. Greetings, citizens of Oreo. I'm Hestia, goddess of the hearth, home, and hospitality. She began her speech, but I tuned it out as I started to think about what was happening. What is she doing here? She was supposed to descend a year from now, so what did change? Rob. That bastard must have done this. Does that mean the canon plot will also happen sooner? Shit. If it happens, all my early preparation to be strong enough will go to waste. Q. Papa, calm down. Sylvie cued, and it helped me calm down. Let's think about it. Hestia descended today instead of a year from now. What could be the cause? I started thinking about every possible scenario, from the changes to the timeline to the original timeline, to find what caused Hestia to descend early. Wait. I finally put this together, but if this theory is correct, this could be bad. In the original timeline, Hestia descends around 6 months before Belle arrives in Orario, and Bella will come to Orario in 6 months. Is this ROB's doing or fate? I hope this doesn't change the major events. Art, why are you still standing there? Ryu's voice snapped me out. What do you mean, Ryu? After saying that, I looked around and saw Hestia had finished her speech, and everybody was returning to doing their duties. Oh. I said while rubbing the back of my head, trying not to worry about it as I started walking home. But this brings out the question of what Familia Bella should join. At first, I thought about her joining the Astrea Familia, but now that Hestia is here, it has changed things. Waking up early the next day, I started preparing for the day. My new outfit consisted of a loose black long-sleeve shirt with a cloak lined with soft white fur around its hood. A pair of black pants, soft leather shoes, and my sword strapped to my waist. Taking my backpack, I checked if I had everything we would need. Some healing potions, food, and a large water pouch. Everything seemed good, so I left the apartment and walked toward the dungeon with Sylvie resting inside my hood. Without any problems, we arrived at the entrance to the dungeon, where Ryo was waiting for us. Morning, Ryo. I hope you didn't wait long. I greeted the blonde elf. Morning, Art. No, I just arrived. She replied with a small smile. We talked for a bit before descending the staircase into the dungeon. We started killing every monster on our way down the floors, and I must say it's nice to have someone watching your back. Of course, I always had Sylvie, but she is lazy, so if nothing serious happens, she won't do anything. Sigh. My daughter is lazy in the dungeon. Dodging the attack from a deadly hornet, I set my sword on fire and stabbed it straight through the head of the monster. The deadly hornet is a large bee monster with a stinger powerful enough to pierce heavy armor and kill a level 2 adventurer in one thrust. As I picked the magic stone from its corpse, I saw Ryu killing the last monster, so we continued down to the 25th floor. The 25th floor marks the beginning of the Great Fall, a massive waterfall around 400 meters wide and twice that in length, which lasts until the 27th floor. To move on to the next floor, we must navigate through a series of passageways varying in elevation around the waterfall to reach the passageway at the bottom. As we entered, Ryu took out her Undine cloth, a blue cloth imbued with the power of an Undine, giving increased protection against water-based attacks and helping the wielder underwater. I didn't use one because I could easily use my magic, so it was an unnecessary expense. We continued to navigate through the passages, killing every monster with minor difficulty before leaving the water city behind and entering the 28th floor, which was a safety point. Let's rest here for a few hours before we continue, Ryu said while taking out something from her backpack. Sylvie left to roam around the floor. I wasn't worried because this was a safe floor, and if a single monster came down here, she could easily kill it. But now that we are here, I thought about something important and needed Rio's opinion. Say Rio, what do you think about bringing an almiraj as a pet for my sister? I asked her. She looked at me before answering with a deadpan expression. Almiraj, as in the level 2 rabbit monster. Yes, that would be a great present for your sister. Yes, they would look cute together, I said while nodding my head. You know, with all the stupid things you do, I wouldn't be surprised if you actually did it, she said before drinking from her water pouch. We continued talking for some time while eating before I felt Sylvie's emotion from our link. SYLV. I yelled while running in the direction she was in. Ria, seeing me, panicked and running, quickly followed on guard for an attack. When I arrived, I saw Sylvie stuck to a crystal that was absorbing her mana at a very fast pace. My whole body warned me not to come near, but I ignored it and tried to help Sylvie. Trying to separate her didn't work, and she was getting weaker every second. I could also feel it start to drain my mana. Not having the time, I decided to activate Static Void. As the colors of my surroundings inverted and time stopped, I started thinking of possible solutions. Looking around, I didn't see any monster that could do this, and I couldn't remember any crystal that could do something like this. Activating Realm Heart, I could see all the mana and ether surrounding me. Shit! I cursed out loud. How is this possible? This crystal isn't only absorbing the mana but also the surrounding ether. What should I do? Not seeing a way out, I decided to do something stupid again. Releasing Static Void, I placed my hand on the crystal and started channeling mana into it. Pushing in more mana, the crystal started to focus on absorbing my mana instead of Sylvie's, allowing her to detach from the crystal for the next thing I would do. She was barely conscious and couldn't move, so I used wind magic to move her to Rio, that just arrived. Ryuu, don't come close. This crystal is absorbing the surrounding mind, I yelled at her. I took a deep breath, ignoring what she was yelling, and concentrated all the mana from my core into the crystal. This could end in a good way or in a bad way. The good being it releases me after my mana empties, or the bad one, it would explode. Well, healing potions should heal the damage. No going back now. Pushing all the mana from my core, I saw as the crystal absorbed it, and not so long after, instead of letting me go, it started shining brightly, gradually becoming brighter while burning my hand. Arthur. Q. Papa. I could see as Ryu ignored my previous warning and tried to reach me, but she wasn't fast enough. The light covered me entirely, and instead of any pain, I felt a floating sensation before I was slammed onto the ground with a thud. Erg. My core was practically empty but slowly replenishing. My body felt heavy, and I could barely stay awake. P***pa, with $E4RY*. I heard Sylvie's voice through our link. I focused on the link, but it was weak, I could barely feel it. So this should mean we are far away from each other. Sylvie, listen to me. I'm alive, but I don't know where I am. Help Ryu get out of the dungeon and stay with her until I find a way out. I sent my thoughts, hoping she heard it. Feeling my conciseness slowly fade, I used the small amount of mana left in my core to create an earth dome around me, leaving only enough space to get fresh air. With that, I welcomed the darkness. Chapter 14, Alone. Arthur Leywin. With a groan, I woke up only to hit my head. Ugh. Where am I? Holding my hand, I started trying to recall the last moments before I passed out. Right, that crystal separated me from Sylvie and Rio. Now, where did it take me? Checking my mana core, it was fully replenished, so I opened the dome to see what was outside. The surroundings were dim, but the magic crystal around the walls provided enough light so I could see my surroundings without any problems. Trying to sense for any nearby mana signatures, I didn't sense anything, so I assumed there weren't any monsters or adventures around. Well, that's good at least, I said aloud. Sylvie, can you hear me? While waiting for a response, I didn't get anything. I could still feel the connection, but it was weak, so I assumed we were too far away. Sylvie is strong enough to protect herself and Rio now, so I don't need to worry. Let's just hope I'm only deeper in the dungeon. Did I raise a flag? Let's hope I didn't, I thought as I reinforced my ears. The sound of rushing water filled the area, and it wasn't that far away. I checked my backpack and noticed that the potions were broken, and only the food and water pouch were intact. Throwing away the potions, I left the area and started heading toward the water. Getting water and food will be the best plan for now. Then I need to find the way to the floor above. It didn't take long before I arrived near a 5 meters wide river. The first thing I did was try the water and see if it was drinkable. Taking a sip from the water, and thankfully, it was drinkable. So I started to drink more of the water and then took out my water pouch and refilled it. But something caught my eye. It was a small purple stone in the palm of my hand. An achlorite. No, this could be another extremely similar stone. Focusing on the stone, I could feel the stone absorb some of my mana, but not on the same level as the crystal did. This isn't the time to think about it. Sitting down, I started sensing my surroundings for the possible monsters while thinking of a plan to get back to the surface. Going up is the only choice, but the problem is my food supply. I had enough food to last a few days if I rationed it. If I'm lucky, I should find something edible in the dungeon, like the dungeon crops found between floors 29 to 36. I spent some time exploring the floor, and I could assume it was a safe floor due to the lack of monsters. I also found the entrance to the lower floor, but that wasn't what I was looking for. There wasn't anything that looked edible on this floor. So now, my only choice was to find a way to go up and try my luck. It didn't take long before I found a passage leading to the floor above, so I went up. As I entered what I dubbed Floor 1, I started looking around. The floor looked like the previous one. Not sensing anything near me, I continued forward, but when I was around 400 m from the stairs, I felt killing intent from all around me. Shit. I cursed. Looking around, I saw hundreds of white wolves blocking me from returning to the passage to Floor 0. I can't feel any mana from them. Since when can monsters hide their mana signature? Seeing no choice but to fight, I augmented my body and activated Thunderclap Impulse waiting for them to attack me. Staring at the wolf I assumed was the leader because he was bigger and had 2 horns unlike the others, I thought of the best way to handle this. With a loud howl from the leader, the other wolves started their attack. Igniting my sword with blue flames and using wind magic to increase my speed even further, I started with a slash to the closest wolf and severed its head. What surprised me was that it started disappearing, but I didn't have time to think about it because I sensed an attack from behind. So I spun around, the flames from my sword expanding the length of the blade and killing 2 other wolves before they disappeared. I continued killing every wolf near me, losing track of how many I had killed, but the more I killed, the more I appeared. Looking at where the leader was previously, I saw him still there while being guarded by 2 other wolves. Wanting to try something, I activated Realm Heart. The mana particles became visible, and my ability to sense mana increased. Then I saw the wolves all were connected by mana to the leader. Is this his ability? Deactivating Realm Heart, I stopped killing the wolves and concentrated on creating a spell that would kill all the wolves around me. Using wind magic, I created 4 tornadoes around me, and by infusing them with fire magic, I created fire tornadoes. Then, before the wolves could even do anything, I expanded the tornadoes and sent them straight at the wolves. The wolves howled in pain as they started to burn before disappearing like the others. Looking at the leader, I saw that he started to back away, trying to retreat, as I saw more wolves magically appear around him. But before he could, I dashed toward him, jumping over the new wolves and landing just before him. Before he could even react, I plunged my sword into his head, and as he was dying, I saw all the other wolves start to flicker out of existence. Well, a Naruto wolf. I didn't expect that here. I said to myself. After the wolf died, I felt the mana coming from its magic stone, even without the help of Realm Heart. So monsters can hide their mana signature now. Interesting. If other monsters possess this ability, it would be bad for me now that I'm alone. After I picked the magic stone from the wolf's dead corpse, I could sense the immense amount of mana stored in it. I stored the stone in my backpack and continued to explore the floor. Real lion. I watched as the blinding light spread from the crystal, engulfing Arthur, and when the light faded, I couldn't see Arthur anymore. Arthur. I yelled as I tried to find him. No matter where I looked, I couldn't find him. I spent hours searching the floor and calling for him, but he wasn't there. I was feeling hopeless and couldn't accept that Arthur had died. When Sylvie started crying, I tried to comfort the white fox while trying not to cry myself. We just sat there for some time before she jumped out of my arms and tried pulling me toward the 27th floor. Sylvie, we can't, we need to find Arthur, I said, trying to stop the little fox from leaving. That's when she decided to stop and bite me on my arm. I felt a sting of pain before, and a tattoo appeared. I didn't even have a chance to think about it before I heard a voice out of nowhere. Q. Papa is fine, he said to help Mama out. Who? I looked around but couldn't find anyone around me besides Sylvie. Sylvie? I asked. Q. Yes, Mama. She said between sniffs. Sylvie could talk. Wait, could Arthur also hear her? That isn't important now. Sylvie, do you know where Arthur is? I asked, hoping she would know. Q. Papa doesn't know where he is, but he is alive. He said I should help you get out. We need to help him. Q. Papa is strong. He will come back. I thought about it for some time. Sylvie confirmed that he was alive, but I don't know where he is. Has been transported to a lower floor. I won't be able to survive it alone. So we must return and get help from the rest. But how will I get out of here alone? Q. I'm strong, Mama. I'll help. This actually made me laugh despite the situation. I know you want to help Sylvie, but you are too small to help, I said while petting her head. Then as if to prove me wrong, she started glowing and expanding until the cute white fox was gone, and an 8 meters long black dragon appeared. Sissy Sylvie, is that you? I asked the dragon. Q. Of course, it's me, Mama. The dragon said with a proud face. Okay, so the cute light fox I have known for over 2 years was a dragon. Just thinking about this made me forget what had happened for a while, and I just stared at the dragon. Wait. She called me Mama the whole time. If she called me Mama, then the person she calls Papa must be. Stop, Rio. This isn't the time to think about it. We need to get out of here and get help and find Arthur. We managed to leave the dungeon safely. Thankfully we didn't encounter any adventures until we returned to the 18th floor, and from that point, I could manage to return without her help. Running through the street of Orario, I ignored the surprised looks of everyone and made my way to the Stardust Garden. Sylvie. While Mama and the rest of her familia members discussed the plan to help Papa, I tried to contact him through our bond. While I needed to make a temporary bond connection with Mama so I could tell her to come back, my connection with Papa is still intact, but I can't connect with him. The only thing I know is that he is still alive but far away. I can't help but blame myself for everything that happened. If I didn't go near that crystal, this wouldn't happen. I wanted to go and find him, but Papa told me to stay and protect Mama, so I must do that. Chapter 15, Reunion. Arthur Leywin. The ground was littered with corpses from all the monsters I had killed. I don't know how long I've been stuck here, but if I had to guess, I would say around a month. Of course, the constant fighting and not having the chance to sleep safely didn't help. Thankfully I found a floor with fruits I could eat so I wouldn't die of starvation. I also found out I could create a safe place inside the walls as long as I didn't damage the dungeon too much. The problem was that the dungeon regenerated itself, so I couldn't sleep much, but a few hours were better than none. Collecting all the magic stones, I began to head to the next floor. Thankfully the monsters start to be weaker the higher I go, so as long as I don't do anything stupid, I can defeat them with my magic and mana rotation. I don't know if even a first-class adventurer could do what I'm doing here, but I'm the better mage. That didn't sound as good as, I'm the better swordsman, but hey, it was the truth. Who else can control 4 elements and their deviant forms in this world? No one. I think. Looking at my hand, I saw the purple stone again. I seriously hope I get Regis. Otherwise, I'm going to be mad. This stupid rock absorbed most of the mana from the magic stones, leaving me with just the scraps. Well, it isn't like it was a small amount. It was almost enough to break me to mid-silver, but it also proves how gluttonous the stone is. I guess being teleported here wasn't the worst thing that could happen. At least my core didn't break, and I can get stronger here, maybe even break into white core. This place also made me realize that my magic sense isn't the best. While I can sense people and monsters without a problem normally, but if they hide their magic presence, I can't do it without the help of realm art. So what better way to improve this than fighting the monster while blindfolded? Apparently, getting yourself almost killed helps to improve faster. Well, they say no pain, no gain. Am I slowly becoming a masochist? No, 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 like I told Sylvie all the other times, this is just training. Right, Mr. Rock. I said while looking at the purple rock, but I didn't get any response. Well, what did I expect from a leeching rock? I need to get out of here before I start talking to my water pouch. I entered the next floor and managed to sense hundreds of monsters, and I couldn't stop myself from smiling. Even if this meant lots of fighting and the possibility of death, I still needed to find the next floor, and the mana-rich magic stones were just a bonus. Yeah, that's it. I told myself while nodding my head. I'm not some battle maniac that wants to fight strong opponents. Maybe I should fight Otter when I Leah. No, stop it, Arthur. You said you are not a battle maniac, so stop. But I would like to test my strength against a high-leveled adventurer. But how would I manage to do that? Just go to Folkvanger and say, Yo Otter, I came here to fight you. Actually, that may work if I attack the whole familia. Anyway, that's for later. Now I have a horde of monsters to kill and magic stones to absorb. I augmented my body and activated Thunderclap Impulse, and with that, I charged at the place I could sense the monsters. Arriving at the monster horde's location, I went straight for the kill and killed a giant orc that could rival a veteran level 5 adventurer just by its presence alone. Noticing a group lunging at me, I made an illusion clone and jumped away to kill another one. The illusion clone was a new spell I developed during my stay here. I create a clone of myself as a distraction while I'm invisible and can hide or sneak attack from a different position. This continued for hours, but thanks to mana rotation absorbing the surrounding mana, my core was half full after the fight. I seriously wished for something like a dimensional ring because the amount of magic stones couldn't fit in my backpack, and I was forced to stay and absorb them after every big fight. Using earth magic, I made a quick safe place where I stored all the magic stones, and after closing it, I started to absorb the mana. After about 200 stones, my core broke into mid-silver, and I was happy about it, but about 90% of the mana went to the crystal, and I wondered if it could become Regis. If I remember correctly, Regis was formed by combining the mana from Arthur, Sylvia, Sylvie, and Yuto. While the crystal absorbed my mana and Sylvie's, I can't feed it the mana from Sylvia or Yuto. If this crystal is similar to the Aclarite Ren gave Arthur, but it could be an ordinary crystal that seared itself onto my palm. Well, just wasting the magic stones aside, this crystal doesn't harm me, so I can keep it and see what happens. With that, I picked another magic stone from the big pile and started absorbing it. Picking up the last stone, I started absorbing it while eating a weird-looking fruit that tasted like tomatoes. It wouldn't take long before I could go fight again. I mean, finding my way out of the dungeon. Fine, I'm maybe a battle maniac. But who wouldn't be in a world with swords and magic? As the last wisps of mana were absorbed from the stone, it started to crumble before turning to dust. Opening my bunker, I saw some monsters spawned, so I killed them quickly before finding the way to the next floor. Finding the stairs to the next floor didn't take much time, and as I walked up the stairs, I felt like running away from this floor. It wasn't the feeling of fear I felt when facing an enemy stronger than me, but a feeling like something really bad awaited me on this floor. Trying to sense the monsters on the floor, I could only detect one monster, and it was strong. It also gave me a different feeling from other monsters I met. Pushing that feeling aside, I entered the floor to see what the monster was. It didn't take long before I saw it, and now it made sense why it felt familiar. Not even 100 meters away from me stood the Juggernaut. Hiding behind a rock, I started observing it. Why did it appear here? I'm the only one here, and the dungeon hasn't been damaged much. The Juggernaut was also much stronger than the one I fought all those years ago. Judging just by the mana it emits was stronger than any monster I fought down here. Should I use Mirage Walk and sneak past it? If not for all the mana stones I can get here, I could use Mirage Walk with illusion magic and mana rotation, and I could walk out of this place. This Juggernaut could be a challenge to kill, but in the worst case, I'll just run away. I started slowly walking towards the Juggernaut, still using Mirage Walk to hide my mana signature. As I was ready to attack the monster, its head snapped at me with a speed that would break if it was human. Shit. How did it sense me? Not the time to think about it. Preparing myself for the fight, I activated Thunderclap Impulse activated, but no attack came. That was when it spoke in a feminine voice. I finally found you, my love. My mind blanked for a moment. The Juggernaut was speaking and called me love. So it became a Xenos. And it called me love. There was one thing to do now. Goodbye, I said, and with a 180-degree turn, I started running. Hell, I don't care if the Juggernaut turned into a Xenos, but I knew that when a Juggernaut calls you love, you should run. Why are you running, my love? I heard her yell but didn't care. I started to use every possible way to go faster and even used illusions, but to my dismay, I somehow ran into a dead end. Turning back to look at the Juggernaut, I couldn't run so with straight in the face, I said. Miss, I think you got the wrong guy.